Nier Automata is set in the same universe as the original Nier, which was a spin-off from the Drakengard series. The goal was to make Nier a game that was true to the spirit of the original, while simultaneously crafting a better gameplay combat. Hello friends, I'm Kankicks and welcome to MixedUp. And to give you our early impressions about Nier, I have Smokedship, who's been playing a lot of Nier.
Hey man, and welcome to MixedUp folks. So yes, we have played a couple of hours of Nier Automata, and our impressions are based on that to help you decide whether Nier Automata is worth your time and more importantly worth your money. We will be able to give you a more detailed impression about the game once we've completed it.
So Smoked, we have not played the previous titles in the franchise or in the Drakengard series. What did you expect going in?
Exactly. We just want you to know that these early impressions have been made by viewing Automata in a vacuum and without any nostalgia factor, as we have not played any of the previous related titles. But still, after seeing Platinum Games' trailers and gameplay sneak peeks for Nier Automata, I thought I would be in for one fast, stylish and engaging game with maybe a slightly meh story and an almost there voice acting, but engaging nonetheless. What I was met with was a pretty lackluster start, with the game taking way too long to get from one point of relevance to another.
Coming to think of it, original Nier was a mashup of a bunch of some pretty different gameplay elements and also many camera angles. How does that fare in Automata?
Yeah, the game is basically part text adventure, part top-down, part side-scroller, part hack and slash. During navigation in some environments, the game shifts from its standard third-person view to an overhead side-scrolling perspective. This is of course borrowed from the original Nier, but it does make you wonder what exactly the game is trying to achieve with this, especially when it can become more of a hindrance at times during puzzles or pathfinding. Though I can't deny, there are times where the side-scrolling looked just fantastic. My guess is that it's a clever way for the developer to reduce level sizes or complexity by controlling the camera in certain areas. The dialogue interaction can vary from voice-acted but not facially animated characters to just plain text. These kind of scenarios were handled much better in titles like Persona 4 or even Danganronpa, where at least an exclamation or vocal expression would be made by the character while reading through their dialogue. This just made things more interesting. Not sure why Nier skipped on this. With sudden ominous philosophical overtones that pop up in the plot along with pretty diluted environments and cringeworthy dialogue, you wonder if Platinum's reach is exceeding their grasp here. Yes, there are certain high-octane scenes initially, but in this day and age, and considering Platinum's earlier titles, you can safely shove them in the been there done that basket. My main issue is not with the story. The thing is that you play the character of an android 2B and her companion 9S, and later A2, none of which show any kind of personality or reason for you to care for them, at least in the first half of the game. Things definitely start to pick up later, but the build-up is slow.
Well, you pick up a Platinum game for satisfying hack and slash combat, and I felt Nier offered pretty much of that. I mean, I wouldn't go buying the game for a great story, right?
I know. The people would say the highlight would be the combat mechanics, but even that didn't feel anything as satisfying as Vanquish or Metal Gear Revengeance or even Bayonetta. Simple things like solid rumble feedback as you strike enemies could have added weight to the combat and made a pretty substantial difference. There's some pretty interesting mechanics like your trusty pod that fires long-range projectile attacks and special abilities for area of effect damage. Defensive shields, environment scanning, high damage lasers are also part of its kit. It also helps in traversal, helping you glide down deep crevices and not take fall damage. You can retrieve additional pods later in the game, thereby giving you the option of switching between various attacks and abilities on the fly. On death, you respawn at your very last save and can find your previous android body at the spot that you died earlier. Here you can either revive your previous body, which helps you as a weak ally, or you can harvest it for the XP and currency that it had. The enemies we've seen till now are nothing to write home about. Apart from some bosses that are highlights of the game, bosses have the typical hack and slash drill of varying attacks and abilities based on the amount of HP they have left. To be honest, it's in and around these boss battles that the game shows some actual highlights and displays its strengths. Too bad there's so few and far between. I found map and UI also to be pretty much of a disaster. The upgrade system by inserting or modifying chips is pretty confusing, with no instructions given on what to do and the interface being even more confusing. The 3D map is pretty much a mess, which is actually made fun of by some of the NPCs later in the game, saying that it's to encourage you to traverse the game world on your own 2 feet. Which brings me to traversal and the game world itself. 2B's accelerated running is stylish and very well tuned, coupled with her dash slide mechanic makes her traverse large spaces pretty fast. Despite this, pathfinding is not great. You're met with quite a few invisible walls and weird environmental traversal decisions that allow you to go between some pretty dense tree barks but stop you from going through a pretty wide open doorway.
Yeah, that was a big bummer for me too. Some obvious paths cannot be traversed, but what I liked about Nier's world is how it creates a dark and a gloomy atmosphere.
The environments look great when viewed on a screenshot or for a very short duration in real time. When you'll be running around in them for extended durations, they feel pretty drab, with scarce texture details, noticeably repetitive building models, and shades of about 2 or 3 colors max. Don't get us wrong, we're all for creating atmospheric intrigue based on selective hues that best highlight the situation. But there's a subtle difference in negative spaces and just plain emptiness. Nier tends to lean towards the latter more often. It's understandable that the empty urban environments are supposed to show gloom and loneliness, but they don't. Though some places like the theme park area are done quite beautifully, even though they make no coherent sense of existing. This could easily have been rectified by reducing the massive distances between areas, especially with the amount of back and forth traversal that you get to do, which just get better due to the fast travel system that's introduced probably after an entire Call of Duty campaign's worth of playtime. Thankfully, the brilliant background music just lifts the game and helps you through some of the numbing environments. The music and its cohesion with the sound design itself is masterful. Rarely would you just want to listen to a game soundtrack even when you're away from the game itself. It's that good.
Oh, I absolutely loved the music and also really enjoyed some parts of the game, especially after we reached the funhouse. That was a joyous experience.
Yes, the game picks up much later, with some slight connective tissue between the character and the environments that begin to take shape.
You see? Total slave driver. Whoopsh.
If she didn't order others around, what kind of leader would she be?
If you say so.
Mechanics like fast travel that show up make things much easier, allowing you to ignore some of the environmental flaws and focus on the plot. Also to be noted is the absence of an auto-save feature, which I'm not complaining about. It somehow adds to the urgency in survival and combat. Saving takes place at vending machines, which also act as fast travel conduits later on. Overall, Nier is a strange game to review and give an opinion on. I honestly hated it at the start, thinking that this would be another reskinned Transformers game, which would be better as a PS Plus or Xbox Live Gold freebie. Don't hate. But as I soldiered on through it, gotta get your money's worth, I found the game actually finding itself and making me care more and more about the characters and the world I was traversing through.
Overall, I'm really enjoying Nier for the most part. It has some excellent scenarios and themes thrown in. It's really good, if not the greatest game. And I really enjoyed the upgrading system and how it handles skill development. My only gripe is that it felt inconsistent at times, like camera suddenly shifting to top-down view or some NPCs not being voiced at all. It suggests budget cuts for a AAA title.
It's a weird time where AAAs like Fallout are praised to the skies despite it being an inconsistent and laggy bugfest. Yet Mass Effect Andromeda is bashed for being a terrible game for having average facial expressions before it even comes out. It is justified to view Nier Automata dispassionately. It just does not feel like a game you would expect in 2017, with the backlog of games that Platinum has under its belt and the fantastic titles out there that tackle similar world situations with far more finesse and quality. You'd expect them to have learned from all this and put their best foot forward. Though an argument can be made that the game picks up after about 10 or 20 hours of play or after 5 playthroughs, we really don't think that should be necessary for any creative content to engage you.
So Smoke, the big question, is it worth the full price?
Well, if you're a fan of the franchise or just want to look at 2B, which is a perfectly good use of your time, then go ahead. But if you're short on time and think this game would be a fun fest from the beginning, probably wait for a discount, especially on console.
Alright guys, if you liked this video, please feel free to press the like button. And for more about Nier Automata, be sure to subscribe to us.
All of you shall become as gods. All of you shall become as gods. All of you shall become as gods. We'll all die together and become as gods.
This is Mixed Up, signing off.